Hello and welcome to episode 40 of Unfiltered, featuring this week the comedian, polemicist, also vanguard of the hard left, author, newspaper columnist, former vanguard of the hard left.
Yeah.
Mark Steele, hello.
Hello, lovely to see you, James.
It's lovely to see you, and it's hard to know where to begin, but we'll begin at the very, very beginning, because your origins, both sort of biological and non-biological, have formed the basis of one of your recent shows.
Yeah.
You were 10 days old when you were adopted. I was adopted as well. I don't know if I've ever told you that.
I didn't know.
No, similar. 28 days old. So I never didn't know. Did you?
No, I never didn't know. So, in fact, I said it in the show that I did about it. I said, people expect there to be a big story. Big story of being sat down when you're 6.
Yeah.
Now then, Mark, something very important to tell you.
What, Mum?
You're special. You're not like the other boys and girls whose mummies and dads have to keep them even if they hate the bastards, because you were chosen specially.
Yes.
And no, there was never that, and bless me mum and dad for that. I'm not 100% with everything they did, but that was, top marks to them. There was never a moment of that. I always knew. And there was a story, a very simple story, that my aunt, as I came to know her, was someone who lived over in West London, and she lived in a little flat with husband, Uncle Arthur, and one day the flat that was next to theirs, a new tenant moved in, and it was this woman who was 19, and she was in a pickle, and she was pregnant, and my Auntie Gwen got talking to her. She was a very talkative woman, and she said, what's the matter, love? Oh, I'm pregnant, I've run away from home, no one knows I'm here, my mum and dad know I'm here, nothing, I don't know what I'm going to do. So my Aunt Gwen said, well, look, I'll tell you what, I've got a possible solution here, right? My brother and his wife, they live in a place in a little town in Kent called Swanley. They want to have kids and can't have kids. When you have the baby, why don't we just give it to them? Because it was 1960, and there wasn't forms and complicated paraphernalia.
You probably had
stuff.
to do some.
Probably not. It was a bit like getting rid of a fridge. Get rid of a fridge would be more complicated now. You can't just get rid of a fridge. You've got to fill in an online fridge disposal form from the waste disposal unit. There's an 8-year waiting list. But it's just like like a footballer being transferred. Yeah, he's a bit. He's 33. He's probably going down the league, go to Brentford. So I was sort of shuffled off to Swanley, and that's all I knew. And I was brought up with that. And my Auntie Gwen did sometimes say to me, your natural father, Francis, which is my natural mother's name, Gwen obviously knew. She never said much about whoever it was who was your father. She did say he was French. And I say in the show, so I would I would say to people as I was growing up, oh yeah, my natural father was French, and they'd say things, oh well, that explains why you like cheese and books.
Were you supremely secure? I mean, you can never know for sure because you only live the life you live. You don't know. Yeah. But were you? Because I always think I was supremely secure, supremely. But people find it hard to believe. They think it must. Yeah, they do. Must have been like a mark of Cain. Yes, exactly.
But I bet really you were. Yeah. No, but didn't. And then, well, that's the thing, is that then for years, don't you want to know? I'd be fascinated. Yeah. Maybe you would be, I don't know, but I'm not. I had no interest until my own son was born, and then a bit,
How old were you then?
35.
Because when my eldest was born, that for you as well, that's the first person you've ever met that you're biologically related to.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which is a bit of a... Isn't it?
Oh my God, that's true.
You've only just realised this. His son's now well into his 20s. God, yeah. But my daughter loves that when I remind her of that, because it is. I mean, that's a remarkable observation that you've never, because so few people are ever going to experience that. And I thought it would do that to me, but it didn't. So how did it?
Oh right.
It didn't change much for me yet.
No, it did for me. Because I thought, not in the sense that I was desperate to find me mum, but because I thought, my mum probably will remember me, won't she? Yeah. Up until then, I'd thought, even if I met her now, she'd go, I gave birth so long ago, dear. So much has happened. I've completely forgotten. But of course.
Once you feel that thing yourself, you realise.
You would. Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember bits of the show now, but I think I did say, you don't. Of course, you remember. There's very few people, very few people who ever sort of go, didn't we used to have a son, you do remember having kids. And so then I tried to find her, but she wasn't easy to find.
But it was it was an unselfish motivation then. You kind of wanted to address what you presumed she would be feeling, rather than to fill any holes in your own heart or your own life.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Did you worry about what your mum and dad would think?
No, well, my dad's long since gone, and my mum was my mum doesn't bother with these things. I mean, even when I eventually sort of did end up finding bits and pieces and out and everything, she was like, "Oh, blimey!"
Really, supremely relaxed.
Yeah. And if I'd said, "Oh, yeah, I've been out to somewhere," if I'd said, "Well, it turned out she was living in Rimini," my natural mum.
Right.
I mean, and if I'd gone out to meet her and come back, my mum would have probably just gone, "Well, what was the weather like, dear?"
That's quite sweet.
In fact, she had I did a bit of the show where I was saying my mum was a proper mum. My mum was an absolutely proper old-fashioned mum. None of this walking in Thailand and smoking dope nonsense. A proper old-fashioned. And this is true. One of the first jokes I did when I did stand-up was about me mum. And it was a true story. I was watching the news one day, and there was somewhere or other, wherever it had been at the time, Lebanon or something, civil war, blokes standing there. And my mum went, "Oh, look, it's raining there as well." Proper mum.
Love it.
In fact, and also there was a time when I was just at the very early days of the Corbyn business, before people even thought he had a chance of winning the Labour leadership thing, but when he put himself down as a candidate, and there was a big rally in London. It was much bigger than anyone expected it to be, and I was asked to speak at it, which I always think, "Oh, am I doing it?" But I was asked to speak, and well, this was a sign of the times. The last three speakers was Corbyn, then me. I think that happened now, and then Russell Brand.
Gosh.
And I was about to go on, and my phone rang, and I thought, "Oh God, I've got to get rid of this. I'm just about to go on." And I gave the phone to my wife, as it was at the time, and I sort of went on and come off. And afterwards, later on in the day, I said, "Oh, what did my mum want?" And she said, "Oh God," she said, "Where is he?" And I said, "He's on stage, Mrs. Steele. He's on stage. He's with Jeremy Corbyn and Russell Brand." And she said, and your mum went, "Oh, well, we've been to Paynton."
Love it. Well, let's back up then. Let's not jump forward to when your boy was born and back up to home, because from what you portray, what you paint there, you would have had no business having ambitions to be a comedian or to be political or anything like that. It sounds like home was quite staid, is the word I'm thinking of?
It was utterly, and this isn't me mum and dad's fault, it's an extraordinarily uncultured place. And I mean, because I do a show where I go around towns of Britain and I have to be merciless about them. I can only do that if I like them. I can't bear anybody going, "Oh, that's a horrible place. Everyone there is horrible, useless, posh, stupid, chav, anything." I can't stand all that. Right. I think it's just not possible. But Swanley is the nearest of it. It's not the people I dislike, but there's something about a little town outside in Kent, and it's not in a sort of Kent where you could identify as Kent. It's not Canterbury or somewhere like that. It's outside London. It's sort of, you go at the edge of London, past your Elthams and Bromleys and all that, then through a bit of countryside, and then there's a small town, and its purpose was boredom. Like, you don't have to live in London. In the 60s it started. You don't have to live in London. We've built a new place now out here, and you don't have to be in somewhere where the things happen and people talk and stuff like that. Come here. There's nothing. And that was its purpose. And so when you're a kid, it was awful. One pub. There's sort of two. There's one on the edge.
And people are conscious. The people who live there are because that proximity to London must be interesting, because it makes you feel second class, even though you've chosen to be there.
That's very true.
UKIP country as well, isn't it?
It probably is. The BNP headquarters were there for a while. I don't know if they are. And I don't, I think honestly, I wouldn't want to go, "Oh, so everyone in Swanley's a thief." And that's not what we're racist. Of course not. And of course, there would be brilliant people who have, again, every now and again, they sort of get in touch with me and sort of ask for a little statement or something. because there are people who have resisted it and
Of course,
so on. Of course.
like everywhere.
But but it is a place where you think you really would. It's not that
The
surprising.
inner life was not prioritised in Swanley.
It's not. It's not a great place of mindfulness. Very few people have gone, I'm going to a yogic retreat in Swanley.
But equally, you've gone straight for the extreme. It wouldn't just be a yoga retreat. It would be a book club you would struggle to find, from what you say.
Oh, my God, a book club?
Yeah. So when
if you set up a book club up there, you'd get your head kicked in.
When did you realise it was
setting up a
boring?
book club in my town where I live?
Not round here,
queer.
mate. How did you realise it was boring, though? Because I grew up in Kidderminster, which is also a town that should be on your list for the Radio 4 show. Actually, you should do the. It's also a town that doesn't wear its treasures on its sleeve. But I didn't realise how boring it was until my sort of teens. Really, I didn't realise at primary school age that I lived in a boring town. 'Cause it was the only town I'd ever known.
I hate to sort of top trumps anyone on this,
Oh,
but
God.
Kidderminster. I mean, I know Kidderminster's got a cricket ground when Worcestershire play. It's got a sort of carpet history, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
something.
no, it is. Big on carpets.
It got your doctor man that got elected and so on. So that must have been at the end
Richard
of
Taylor. God, you know your stuff, don't you?
Sort of. But that must have been as a result of a quite fervent sort of feeling and community and so on. And I don't know, but as Swanley, it's. I mean, honestly, James, one pub in 25,000 people, nothing else. No cinema. When people go, well, what sort of thing goes on at the theatre there? The theatre.
It's not even.
You might as well say what sort of thing goes on at the space station.
So what would you do then when you were like 13 and you wanted to go out with your mates? Where would you just go to the park?
We'd just walk round and round and round. Here's the thing. Do you know what? I'm just remembering this. You saying that. We used to sometimes walk to the other end of Swanley and we'd get a stone and see if we could kick it the whole way from down the road, mile and a half, one end of Swanley to the other.
When did you realise that there were alternatives on the horizon? Because you're so near London and so far away from it, geographically close, spiritually on a different planet.
Yeah.
When did you start when did you feel like you didn't fit in then? When did you? Because presumably some people get on the conveyor belt in Swanley and never get off it again.
Yeah, I think me and my mates didn't feel. Well, here is someone who I think should be not. I don't know, shouldn't be given a knight. It should be given a sainthood by the Vatican. Mr. MacDonald, this bloke, in about, I don't know, some point in the 1970s, aware of the sort of lack of anything to do in Swanley, he set up a table tennis club. He was a very good table tennis player, and he got a load of tables from somewhere, I know not where, and he did a deal with the local vicar, and in the hall there he set up maybe 8, 9, 10 tables, and immediately about 100 kids went down to this thing. Something to do.
Anything.
And I'm sure for some reason, if any historian happened to come across the statistics for table tennis players in England, they'd go, that's very odd. This place in Swanley provided a whole load of table tennis players in the mid-70s, but it would have been this bloke. And so I went down there and I just played table tennis, and I also played cricket. I never got out. I never got coached or anything. I mean, I often think, if I'd had all the right coaching as a young lad, with batting and had sort of the facilities and stuff that more privileged kids get, I'd still have been shit.
but enthusiastic.
Yeah.
With a different accent.
But I was quite decent. I'm still all right at table tennis, and it's because it was definitely that and there was loads of us, and there were 3 kids that went on to be really, really good.
And that's the spike. That's the statistical anomaly based on. So have you ever played with Howard Jacobson?
I have.
There you go. This is a Joe, an Unfiltered special, because I interviewed Howard Jacobson recently. It was about 5 episodes ago. I completely forgot to talk to him about table tennis, and it suddenly occurred to me that you were both on the Independent at the same time.
Simon Kellner, who was editor of the Independent at the time, had a sort of a barbecue of some sort around his house up in Oxfordshire, and he'd got into table tennis, and he decided to have a tournament.
Seriously?
And there was 16 people, which worked out perfectly. He organised this tournament, and I was in the opposite half to Howard. So, and I played Simon in the semi-final. He got so cross. Threw the bat down and everything. It was most entertaining. And so I played Howard in the final.
There you go.
And I thought, Howard's getting on for 70. I know he's been Lancashire champion or whatever, but he'll be all right. He won't be used to the spins and everything. And he walloped me from one end to the other.
Because he is brilliant, apparently.
Brilliant.
That's an amazing little coincidence. I didn't know that about you in the table tennis, but the fact that you not only had played each other, but ended up playing each other in the final of a...
Yeah,
I love
Garden,
that. I love that. I mean, your love of sport then was established partly genuinely and partly because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah, I don't know why it is really. There's something did always fascinate me. The sort of I don't know why. Just the sort of pursuit of being so good at something to no great end really. I mean, even when
it's an end in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, really. Yeah. I mean, even Usain Bolt, who is probably the most extraordinary sports person of the last 20 years, I suppose, in that he's gone way beyond sport.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember I went round to a mate's house to watch an athletics event, and there was a homeless bloke there in the corner of the street just was wandering down, and he was going, "What are you doing?" He was an old Jamaican bloke. And he was going, "What do you where you go? What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "I'm going around a mate's house. We're going to watch the athletics, Usain Bolt." And he did the Usain Bolt arrow thing.
Wow.
And I thought this old Jamaican homeless bloke identifies with. There was just a handful of people in history who have been sports people, I suppose. Muhammad Ali, boxers, Pacquiao, I suppose, in the Philippines and stuff. But a handful of people who just transcend everything and make people feel.
Yeah, he has done, hasn't he?
So enormous. But even he's the fastest person in the world, but not to catch anybody.
No, not to know. No, I see what you mean. No purpose.
But beautifully pointless.
Yeah, beautifully pointless. That's kind of sport in a nutshell. So when did you start thinking about escaping then?
Well, I think as soon... I mean, I left when I was 18, as soon as I
left school at 15.
I left school
after getting
15,
involved in a cricket-based controversy.
Yeah, I did get involved in a cricket-based controversy because there was a course that I was invited onto with a mate, and the school wouldn't let us go, so we just went anyway.
Yeah,
and we were expelled. But now here's the thing: it wasn't until about 25 years later that. It never occurred to me this, right? Why did they have a cricket course? This was run by Kent Cricket Club. It was quite a posh thing. Why did they have a cricket course in the week that was during school time? It never occurred to me. I just thought that was when it was and that's it. And about 25 years later, I was talking to Francis Wheen, the journalist, and he said that his stepson had been invited onto a cricket course. But what an outrage, because it's in the week when the school time is on, because the public schools have got a week, their holidays are different. Yeah. And he was living here in Essex. And Essex Cricket Club, it never occurred to them, I don't imagine, that the state schools kids wouldn't be able to go because they are so fixated upon those kids. And it suddenly dawned on me that that's what had happened.
Crikey. So discrimination. And you didn't even realise.
But, bless the public school system because it got me expelled from that rancid school, so thank God for that.
So what did you do afterwards?
Well, I went to... I just got a job, I just got a series of pointless...
But you were really young, you didn't do exams or anything like that?
I did O-levels. They allowed me back in to do my O-levels, and I got 4. And then...
So do you mean... Because I don't snigger, but I think you were a very clever man.
Oh, well.
And you, at this point in your life, presumably didn't think or didn't know you were clever. I'm just not getting any sense of... I'm trying to work out where the chrysalis is. I
left school. I went and do this sort of stupid jobs and stuff. And I don't know. I suppose in a way, I think it was a very easy time to become political in the sort of 76, 77 time. For a number of reasons that are all connected. It was a crisis in society, and I think I know that every period you think there's a crisis. We certainly think there's one now.
Yes, we'll get onto that.
But there was one. But in the late 70s, I think what had happened is this: the post-war generation felt that there was an agreement. We won the war. I mean, the sort of thing George Orwell writes about. Yeah. The working person won the war, as compensation for that.
Yeah.
We're going to be looked after now, and it's going to be all right. And every year things are going to get a little bit better. We're going to make a few bob. Our kids are going to be better off than us. Plus the new inventions that come in, which I think had more of an impact on everyday life than the stuff that's happened recently. Televisions, telephone, cars, washing machines, radios. These things all coming into the house in the period between sort of, I suppose, to most people's house between 58 and 68, say.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. And it felt as if life was getting better. And then suddenly, and that was it now, it was never going to go away. It was never going to go back to how it was before. And then in the mid-70s, the world economy went down the toilet, and the oil crisis and what have you, there was 1 million unemployed, which was shocking at the time. And suddenly, oh no, it's all gone wrong. It's back to shit again. And I think, and various people had their answers. Of course, a number of people said it's the blacks, it's the whatever, There's a more general sense, I think, from a lot of the older generation, the younger bloody generation, they don't care, they don't respect. We fought a war for them. Look at them, their long hair, they don't bloody care. I was out in a bloody desert rat or whatever it was in El Alamein, and you bloody lying around there all day. And that, so I think there was a generational sort of conflict that I know people say, there's always that, but there isn't the same. I speak to my son, he speaks to me, we have certain things we disagree about as a generations, tattoos or whatever, but generally there's a sort of, he'll go, or my daughter will say, oh Dad, you've got to listen to this, and it'll be Drake or the latest J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar thing, and I may or may not like it, but it doesn't sound alien to me.
For sure.
But to my mum and dad, who were born in the 20s, it was just another world, whatever it was. And it wouldn't matter whether it could be anything from the Kinks. You could play anything from the Kinks to Kendrick Lamar to my mum, and it's just, oh my God, what's that awful racket?
Yes.
It could be Nirvana. You could say, Nirvana, this isn't modern, Mum. He killed himself 25 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Doesn't
my
matter.
God, thank
Doesn't
God
matter.
for that. No, it's just,
it's
just everything to them. There was this whole new world that was mystifying, and the younger generation, and what are they like? And I think that's where punk came from. It wasn't thought out necessarily. It was just bollocks to the lot of you, and we're going to shock you, whatever. There we are, safety pins everywhere. What do you think of that? And that was one way that it came out. And it was a very violent society in the 70s, in the late 70s. Really violent. I mean, you just sort of, if you went out to the pub, chances were someone at some point would come over and smack you in the mouth.
Really?
I mean, society was at the school I was in.
Yeah.
And it was just, someone had come over on the way, you'd be going over to your maths lesson or whatever, and someone had just come up, still, poof, wah. And that was just, that
Fun.
was, and
I mean, that's unthinkable for your son's generation.
Well, there'd be complete uproar,
Of course
wouldn't
it
there?
would,
But that just sort of went on. In fact,
and this is all linked, you think? This is all part of the breakdown of the post-war consensus, coupled with not knowing what the future would hold, coupled with a new generation of people who were angry but didn't really know why. It
made it a very tumultuous time, and so I think it was a time when ideas were, you thought about, what is going on with the world here? You can't just ignore it and hope it's going to poodle along.
Whereas you could previously, until the early
could,
to mid, sort of
But as I said, my dad wasn't political, but they were like, we're Labour, we vote Labour, that's what we do, working person. Harold Wilson, he's one of us. And then that's... But no more than that particularly. And so I began to think of ideas. And
where are you getting your influences from? Because it doesn't sound like you're getting them at school. You weren't getting them at home. You weren't getting them in Swanley. How did you discover punk? Or how did punk discover you?
People are sort of all talking about it, and you hear about it. And then I remember getting the Clash album. I was a milkman at the time.
Right.
And every Friday when I got paid, I would drive over to this little record shop in Dartford and just buy a record every week, and afford to buy a record. And I thought, I've heard about this thing, the Clash, and I got that, and I got home and put this Clash record on. I couldn't understand anything they were saying, but I just knew, wow, this isn't apologising for being angry. You think we were bloody cross before, older generation. And I thought, this is amazing. And I think that had an influence. I don't know. You never really know, do you? I think it was all of those things, and I think also seeing the Labour Party as being a conduit for sort of radical ideas, that wasn't really very likely in the late 70s because the Labour Party were the government. And it wasn't that I didn't understand any of the ideas about the IMF or anything like that particularly, but you just saw James Callaghan and Dennis Healey and Roy Jenkins and you thought, well, I can't identify with them. I'm listening to Johnny Rotten and Joe Strummer and Polly Styrene, and the Venn diagram between them and Roy Mason and Merlin Rees was really very, very
they're
thin.
your mum's world.
Yeah, that was my mum's world. Yeah, they all looked like they were sort of the sort of people that ran me dad's bowls club.
Exactly that. So I hadn't thought of it that. So it's more to do with finding somewhere where you fit rather than the ideology or the politics drawing you into it. It's more about where you don't feel at home. Because I thought you might have been on some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, a sort of more a traditional journey. Your father's knee or a teacher at school who turned you onto stuff, but you just bought some records that you liked, made you think about stuff. This brain that had been a little bit dormant, perhaps during your schooling, suddenly sort of came to life. But at the time, you're still driving a milk float.
Yeah, it was. And then I had a mate who said there's going to be an anti-Nazi League march, and we went on that, and I bought a copy of The Socialist Worker.
Right.
Now, I'm not, I wouldn't be particularly kind about that publication anymore, but the thing that struck me, because what I had thought was, this idea of socialism sounds brilliant, but Russia is socialist, and that's a terrible place. That's utterly, clearly, unequivocally appalling. And they had a copy of the Morning Star in the local newsagents, and I'd sort of bought a copy. And it was just all about the lies of the capitalist press and stuff about how wonderful things were in Hungary and Russia and all that. And I thought, well, wouldn't we hear about it? Wouldn't there be people coming over going, what are you all doing living here? Come to Bulgaria. It's amazing. You look at you all working. Yeah, you work for, we spend
milk
all day.
Milk and honey, mate. Milk and honey.
We spend all day sort of at the opera and playing in bands. You're mad.
Yes.
Did you drive a milk float, you lunatic? The milk's free in Poland. Wouldn't it? I just thought it just doesn't make any sense. In fact, I had a joke I did when I did the lectures series, which was, I don't remember it. It was that, the one thing anyone knows about communism is it clearly didn't go very well. If you had a party, if I remember this, if you had a party and the only way that you could keep people at the party was to build a 50-foot high wall around your house with barbed wire on it and snipers at the top, and even then some of the guests escaped in a hot air balloon.
Yes.
You wouldn't go, well, that was a successful evening. And,
it's simple things, but yeah.
And I just thought, well, of course, you think, I've worked it out. That we should have socialism, this idea where we make things communally and look after people who are sort of behind and so on. We should have that, whatever vague sort of way I imagine this. But Russia isn't socialist. And I thought I was the first person in the world to think this. And I bought a copy of this paper and it said, we believe in socialism, but we don't think Russia is socialist. In fact, the little slogan was neither Washington nor Moscow, but socialism.
Yes.
And I thought, that's it. And so that they, and I think they did do a very good job on that front of sort of preserving the idea for people that you could be a socialist without supporting a bloke who, Alexis Sale's magnificent line where he says, I would say to me mum, because his mum was an absolute diehard Stalinist.
Yeah.
He says, I would say to me mum, but what about all the terrible things that go on in the Soviet Union? And she'd go, Lexi, you can't make an omelette without murdering 40 million people.
Love it. He's quite a good person to pick up on, actually, because people like you weren't supposed to be comics, were you? Sort of, it was certainly not political comic. It was quite new. Alexei Sayle was one of the real groundbreakers, wasn't he, of bringing left-wing politics onto a comedy stage. But I don't. We jump forward a little bit because so Socialist Worker brings out a new dawn, if you like. It opens your eyes to the fact that you're not alone. There are other people who think like you.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge thing, isn't it? You know, when people say, you know, oh, you're preaching to the converted. You think, well, no, you're not. Even if someone agrees with everything you say, there's one thing that they haven't necessarily agreed with, which is that there are other people who think like them.
Yeah.
So when you get someone else, you know, like a band, you're sat there as a teenager somewhere, you know, I've got one of my favourite records, I've got a compilation of Norwegian ska, and there's a little bit in the sleeve notes where the guy who put this together about how he was a teenager in Norway in the 1960s listening to Bob Marley and how it's... And I thought, you'd have been in this world thinking something, not sure what it was, and you heard that, and wow, there's... And of course, you know, Bob Marley will have had no idea that he was speaking to people in the suburbs of Oslo. It wouldn't have been his main demographic. But of course, you know, you think
feeling connection.
You feel there's a connection somehow.
So you found your tribe.
I found your tribe, and then suddenly I was, and of course people. You were in a world then that was properly racist. I mean, I know I probably go too far the other way now because I sort of. You know, I hear people getting in a flat because someone said Eskimo instead of Inuit or Red Indian instead of Native American. And there's a bit of me thinks, racism, I'll show you racism. I mean, it was utterly grotesque. Yes. No, just in everyday society, in the pubs, in the workplace, and it was just any one of 10 incidents in a normal day, if you were to say now, there would be, this is shocking, and everyone would be sacked. But at the time, it was just... And so to then find a group of people who weren't like that and who thought it was all right to be gay or something like that was just extraordinary. And I come across, you know, there was this group of people called the Left. Yeah. They were nuts in other ways, but, you know...
And when then did you start... thinking that you could lead a different life? I mean, you know, that you could be on a stage. This is the bit I don't get about you, is this leap that you took at around this point in your life to being a performer, to being a political comedian.
Well, there was a sort of but I don't think I did though, James. I think like most comics, you think, well, I think I'll be a comic.
But you haven't said anything, and we're halfway through the interview, you haven't said anything really that suggests that you thought you were funny as a kid.
I think I just do you know what? I don't know, because I think when you're a kid, when you want to be a comic, you think, I want to be a comic. Yeah. And
when did you first have that thought?
I probably when I was very young. I just like that you drift. I mean, we're mad. We're not good people. Clearly. We're egomaniacs. Yeah. And I don't think many comics think, I'm funny. I think I'd like to bestow some of my mirth upon other people that they may leave them more
on a stage being adored.
Yeah, that's what you think.
Yeah, but again, I haven't picked up. It's nice to hear you say the words, because I haven't picked up on that from you. So that was there.
Yeah, I mean, I did every now and again. When I was 8 at the holiday camp that we were at in Devon somewhere, living in a caravan, I wrote a stupid little poem and went up and I learnt it and memorised it and went up at the talent contest in the week's thing, and I was determined to win that bloody thing.
Got you. So you've got that bug, you've got that hunger. It wasn't so overbeen that you know...
shared that, me and someone else shared that particular pride.
You had to get it in that you got, you're still bitter. It should have been me. It should have been me. So you've got that hunger, you know, but you're not, it's not keeping you awake at night, you're not gnawing your pillow dreaming of...
maybe.
Was it? You were?
Maybe. You sort of think, I want to do something
I'm born for more than this, which is probably easy to think in Swanley.
Yeah.
And then this period... So how did it happen the first time? And I don't want one of your stories about your dad running a car plant in Poland and you... Because for people who don't understand what that's about, you get bored with the question of how you got into comedy. And I'm not asking you how you got into comedy. Just tell me about the very first time you had the microphone in front of you. Where were you, and what happened?
There was Well, there was a sort of circuit that was just developing very, very slowly. I moved up to a squat. I had a mate who moved a squat in Crystal Palace, and so I thought, right, I can leave Swanley. I'll get out. I was 18, and I went up there, and it was a right state. I mean, it was just people were an absolute total mess, hilarious, bonkers mess, people out of it. Or I mean, I don't know. It was just one. This was one example, but this isn't one. This is just sort of thing that went on every day. So knock at the door one day, and I opened up. There's a bloke absolutely just stoned out of his tree, and he went, "Hello, man." I said, "Oh, what? You know, I don't know. You know, what is it?" He went, "Have you got a wardrobe?" I said, well, he said, can I borrow it? I said, well, I've got all my stuff in it. I said, what do you want it for? He says, I want to keep me owl in it. Now, this is the sort of thing that used to... There was only one house in the road that had a bath, and I got in with the bloke, and he said, yeah, Mark, come over, and then so I went over 2 or 3 times, knocked on the door. He said, I'll tell you what, Mark, I'm not always here. Outside here, there's a little ledge, right? I'll just put the key on there, pop in, anytime you like, get the bath. I thought it was brilliant. I was the cleanest person in the whole of these. There was 3 rows, they were all squats. People were an absolute state. But they were an absolute mess. There was another place that had a bath, but the bloke used to change the oil in his motorbike.
In the bath.
So I used to go over there. It's went on for 6 months. I couldn't be happy. I was going every day in the bath. And then one day I'm in there, and there's a knock on the bathroom door, and I went, all right, it's Mark. What? It's Mark. I'm just all with a tail. Who? I said, Mark. I said, who's that? I said, Mark, come over here, use the bath. What? I said, Chris said I could come in. He said, who's Chris? I said, Chris, what lives here? And then he went off and come back. He went, mate, Chris moved out months ago, mate. I've been going over every day. I never kept the key in the same place. I'd just go to this bloke's bath. It was so I was living in this road. Yes. And there was a bloke.
Okay, get on, we're going to run out of time. Sorry, you haven't got on the bloody stage yet.
Right. So there was a... this was the milieu I was in,
yes.
And there was and I came across a poetry group. I said these god-awful poems, but try to make them funny, and we sort of performed a little bit. We performed our little funny poems and stuff. First one I did was in Dulwich, where we did a show at the Dulwich Poetry Society, and I had this angry poem about being unemployed. I was unemployed by now because I was signing on and trying to work out how to become a performer. And there was about 12 of these people in the Dulwich Poetry Society in the back room of rather splendid boudoir. And I thought, right, I'm going to do this angry poem. I don't remember anything about it except the last 2 lines. It was addressed at Thatcher. And the last 2 lines were, because of what I'd read, I'd rather you were dead.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And I thought, I'm going to finish this poem, and either they will go, oh my, and they'll all be sick. Or they will go, the young man's right, and they'll all join the Sandinistas or something. So I finished this poem, and it just went quiet. And then there was about 5 seconds, and then the hottest of these women, she leant across and she said, I think you did very well to remember all the words. So I was sort of in that poetry group. Yes. And then so there was this new world starting up of comedy clubs. There were very, very few regular ones. The Store, but you had to be good to get on there. But that was mostly music hall. Yeah. It wasn't angry political comics at all.
So were people still playing the spoons?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. They were sort of doing a bit of. Yeah, they were doing a sort of satire on it a little bit, maybe. Yeah. They were slightly more anarchic and that. But it wasn't particularly. We have jugglers, buskers, people like that. Yeah. And then there'd be a comic and people trying to work out how to do stuff. There was a place called the Earth Exchange in North London, where a vegetarian restaurant, where there was a hat passed round and you got a tenner and you got your dinner as well. So that was economically very worthwhile.
How did you judge yourself? Who did you judge yourself against? Because you need, as you've mentioned before, you need to have that slightly mad attitude to life and that slightly over developed ego in a way to do this kind of thing. But you also, I mean, if you're really, really crap at it, you probably would have worked that out. So when did you realise you were quite good? Obviously not the night of the Dulwich Poetry Society.
No, not that night. I think you have to have if you get laughs and then you think, think of that, remember that. I suppose it's like anything. I suppose it's like if you're a car mechanic and you fix one engine and then you bugger up 6 more, you think, right, but I clearly can do this. I've got to work out what I did when I got it right. And there is, I mean, my son does stand up, and loads of the other, when he was going to do it, loads of comics said to me the same thing. They said, you'll know, Mark, if he's going to do it. Not when he goes down well. That's easy. Right. It's when he dies. When he dies, if he goes, I'll be all right, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. That's when you know. Because now normal, sensible, rational, intelligent people would go out in front of an audience and people look at them and it go down awful, and you're doing jokes and no one's laughing and it's just a disaster. And there's not a comic in history who hasn't had many, many nights like that. And you have one of them nights and normal people would go, I'm not doing that again. That's absolutely the most crucifying, awful thing. I'd rather be in Guantanamo Bay. Yes. But the comic goes, sod that. I'll have to work out how to put that right. And so you do, as long as you get a few.
Has he had it? Has Elliot had that?
Yeah, he definitely.
So he's the real deal then.
Yeah, definitely. But you do, you sort of go, all right, and we'll work it out, and you get a few laughs, and then you get, and then you have to do, it's like an addiction. You have to do more and more till you end up doing 2.5 hours in every night.
And at what point then? So we're now in the sort of 83, 84. And you started earning a decent living. When did you start earning a decent living?
I mean, in the mid-80s, I got booked on. By then, the sort of circuit was going quite. It'd still be mad. Yeah. There'd still be just mayhem everywhere, and you'd turn up. And if you went outside London, you'd go to a gig, and it'd be chaos.
Right.
There'd just be absolute mayhem and chaos, and there's no microphone, or we've got a heavy metal band playing in the same room, or stuff like that, or you're going on after a lion tamer or something, or just complete mayhem, and you've got
but
all
slowly
that
a structure was emerging.
Slowly a structure, and Addison off the curb professionalised a lot of it, and sort of you tell the venues they've got to have this and that and a microphone that's working and stuff, because something you get there, we thought you could just shout it, or whatever. But bit by bit it got professional, and then you thought, right, this is. You're doing this properly now.
And then you're on a curve, and the curve encompasses, I mean, you're writing, 10 years later, you're writing a column for The Guardian, you're writing books. You always kept the politics and the comedy together.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'm starting to think that it's got to be funny, really, first of all. I sort of see people doing acts and they're just angry, or they're shouting something about some injustice. And I think, there's always a bit of me thinks, but you haven't made it funny, or tried to make it funny, and that's.
But you've got a sense of mischief as well, haven't you? That's got to be the crucial constituent, I think.
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter how serious the subject matter is. If you've got a sense of mischief, then you find the light in it.
I'm going to say the thing that's.
Find the light in it.
I'm going to say the thing that's you're really not meant to say. That's got it all going. And it's fun. And that's why. Now that is why. Now I think there's a problem with the sort of liberal view that you can't say that, or comics shouldn't be allowed to say that. That's not a subject to joke about. And I think to make a joke about something doesn't mean that you don't care about it.
No.
Quite the opposite.
Yes.
Who makes the most jokes about people in bloody terrible physical pain? The nurses who are looking after them, who do more than anybody to look after. They're the people making the jokes about it more than anyone. It's not because they don't care, it's because they do, and it's their way of sort of getting over that and expressing that. No, so I do find myself really recoiling
these
at that.
Days, a little bit. The hypersensitivity, I guess, and also people who can't really explain why they're offended, but they think that they are. We get a lot of that. We jump forward a bit, and we need to jump forward a bit more. So, briefly, I mean, I know in What's Going On you wrote about disillusionment with the Labour Party, with Tony Blair's Labour Party. So that came out 10, 12 years after Blair got elected. And then in 2015, you weren't allowed to vote in the Labour leadership elections.
Yeah,
So I'm just sort of stressing that with you, the politics has never faded? I mean, you're an incredibly political person. Aren't you?
Yeah, I suppose.
Oh, you stood in the London Assembly for the London Socialist Alliance.
I found that difficult, to be honest, because it means you have to take it seriously.
That's kind of what I'm moving towards.
Really difficult.
Because that's the opposite of funny. There's no mischief in the London Socialist Alliance.
Well, there was, but then it wouldn't get you anywhere, you know, because you'd make. I mean, I'd sort of get up and do. The truth, I did lots of speeches, and I loved it because you'd have to go round, and there was somewhere you do a debate with the other candidates, and. Of course, I'd think, I've got lots of laughs there, so that was good. I'd probably turn the one person who was going to vote in for me to not vote for me, but I didn't care, you know. And then, but then also you'd go and actually, what is brilliant then is going around meeting lots of people and listening to them and all that. And I can see why some politicians do really love that, you know, the decent ones. I don't think they're all charlatans at all. I think that they work incredibly hard.
Just the better they are, the less likely we are to have heard of them. I think.
I think that's right.
Seems to be the way.
Right. I know sort of Caroline Lucas a bit, and I think, God, you are an extraordinarily tenacious woman, and just I've seen her. You know, she does the things on Question Time and people like that. And, you know, it's always incredibly impressive, I think. But also. Just in Brighton, you know, she's just
getting on with it.
10 things a day she has to go and visit and sort things out for people and all that, and she does clearly love all of that part of it as well.
So, I mean, the mystery then, as the new show that you're taking to Edinburgh, Every Little Thing's Going to Be All Right. You've been at the forefront of leftish thinking and comedy for the best part of 40 years. You really buggered things up. I'm blaming your lot. I mean, what happened? You know, I'm a great admirer of you. I love Mark Thomas. I love Nick Revell. A lot of the older left-wing politicians that I got to know a few years ago and really felt in awe of. How do you make sense of what's happened? And I know this is partly what the new show is about. It's also about your private life because you've broken up with your wife in the last few years, and there's political and personal.
Yeah, I think it's so magnificently unpredictable at the moment. Yeah. Not entirely in a good way. I mean, I've got a line I'm doing a show about, which I think is pretty. I thought of this line on that night, although it didn't cheer me up no more, but very much. But on the night Trump got elected, and I said to someone, I just have no idea now. I said. I just think these votes are going to keep coming, and the most ridiculous thing, and at some point in the next couple of years, there's going to be a referendum on whether we should all have a red-hot poker up the arse. And all the opinion polls will say not one person thinks we should all have a red-hot poker up the arse. And at 2 a.m, Dimbleby will be going, what an extraordinary result. Hereford, 84% say we should all have a red-hot poker up the arse. What on earth do you make of that, Kenneth Clark? Well, let's face it, the anti-poker up the arse campaign was a total shambles. We're getting to end. And so...
But you were referring to the 70s and the toxicity, the commonplace toxicity of the 70s. You must have felt it had gone forever. And now we're looking at some political developments, not just Trump's election, but Hungary, a degree of the far right on the rise here. I mean, it hasn't gone forever.
No. I don't think it's ever gone forever. I mean, sometimes people will say, I can't believe that we're still having to fight these battles when it was... and I'd sort of think, oh, well, come on. Do you think 30 years ago when you won an argument, right, that's it, that's racism done? Yeah. Of course, people's lives go wrong, and when they go wrong, they will blame people other than the people they should blame. You're
probably less surprised by it than I am then, because I was born in 1972, so I never really saw that. The 80s were quite a nice decade for social progress and stuff. I did think this stuff was
despite it being the Thatcher's decade.
Yeah, I mean, for a kid growing up in the Midlands, you're not that exposed to the sort of privatisation agenda and stuff like that. In terms of the bigotries and the ancient hatreds and prejudices, I probably did think they'd gone forever.
Yeah. I think one of the sort of maybe the joys, or whichever way you look at it, is that being brought up at my time, you were brought up, it was a very, very difficult time in terms of the racism and so on I've spoken about, which was unimaginable if you're sort of like 25 now. And I'm glad. I mean, I was talking to someone who was 20 who couldn't believe that that it wasn't legal for gay people to be married.
No.
Now that's so recent, but
that blew his mind. He should look at the stuff when it became illegal to rape your own wife. That was in the 80s. This stuff is unbelievable.
No, it's extraordinary. That's brilliant. That's unbelievable, and so that is all absolutely marvellous. But I think being brought up at my we were used to being defeated, basically. Then Margaret Thatcher come in. It definitely affects your way of life, and so. But one of the good things about that is, I think, I can appreciate every little tiny. If I go into a place and there's a couple of people there, and there's a couple of people in the neighbourhood, and they're supporting sort of radical idea, or they're supporting anti-racist ideas or something. I think, God, that's brilliant. You're gutsy people, and I do think I find that's everywhere, in the worst estate, in the worst bit of Britain, where there's bloody crack dealers and the BNP and everything. There will be gutsy people who are standing up for gay rights and
trying to make someone else's life better.
And there'll be someone who's trying. You talk to someone who's in a trade union now or something, and they'll be every night. They'll be up till 1 a.m. looking at papers and stuff to work out how they can, I don't know, get some poor woman who's the cleaner who's been sacked or something and get her a job back and stuff. This is going on all over the time, all over the place, and I'm immensely sort of encouraged by it.
Is that why, to coin the title of the new show, is that why every little thing's going to be all right? Because there'll always be good people doing it.
But also the Corbyn, whatever, and there's all sorts of God knows where it's going. But that is amazing that is extraordinary that someone, at a time when there's no great social movement from below, that someone who's stood for all of those things, who was written off as being someone who was just, no one's ever going to vote for him. Yeah. We learnt that in the 80s. He's in Hamas and the IRA or something, and he doesn't sing the national anthem. No one's going to vote for him. And then last year, 40% of the country did, or 30, or whatever it was. That is amazing.
Do you think he'll win? Do you think he'll be Prime Minister?
I don't know. It's just so extraordinary.
Yeah, we're back to what you just said a minute ago about red hot pokers.
I don't know.
No, nobody knows. But
the government might collapse to have a prediction any day, mightn't it? Or it might stumble on.
We've been. I've had our phones off for an hour. The government might have collapsed. We'll only find out. We'll only find out in 4 minutes' time. So the phrase you've used to describe the new show: a miserable period in his life when Donald Trump won the White House, Nigel Farage seemed to be running Britain, and to cheer him up, his wife decided to leave him. Are you making light of serious stuff there? It's nothing for you's off limits. It's all, everything is.
Yeah, I think because if you care about something, you ought to be able to make it funny. It seems to me, and that's why I get so cross with that. The worst question is when someone says, "So this." I'm not saying you're saying that at all, but you hear it on Radio 4 in the morning. They'll have this next show. It's about someone will ask a comedian, but you do things about quite serious subjects. You think, well, what should comedy just be about? Lollipops then, and the shape of a lettuce.
I was thinking more about you splitting up with your wife. Isn't necessarily something that everyone would joke about. I can see that there's.
I think most comics would.
Yeah, you're probably right. You have to, don't you?
You'd find things that are funny about it. I'm not rude about her. I hope not in any way. I think that'd be very nice. But of course, these things are funny and all sorts of. Let's go to this thing called mediation. That is, you can't help but laugh like that. Mediator is exactly like you would imagine someone called a mediator would be. This isn't to get you back together. This is to sort out all the shenanigans of the house and all that. And exactly, woman like this, lovely that you could come. Thank you. Okay, marvellous. Resolution is better than conflict, isn't it? Oh, God, no, please.
You have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to push through.
Yeah.
To divvy everything up, work out
Yeah, oh,
where everything's going. So you seem, as we near the end of our time together, and as I say, the show's up in Edinburgh, it's a line under a period of your personal life and of politics, and as you've said yourself, you've got no idea what's going to happen next. You seem encouraged by it. I sometimes get depressed by that thought. You seem to get quite enthused by it.
I am enthused by it, yeah, I am, and I think, because I think there are, whatever it is, 12 million people who voted for, I know not, there's all sorts of people have all sorts of questions about the Labour Party and so on, but for just the simple fact that when all of British society, all of the establishment, and indeed all of the establishment of the Labour Party itself was saying you cannot vote for this person, he is unelectable. That is a funny thing when they do that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't all vote for him, you idiots. Can't you see he's unelectable? But when they're doing that, and then that is so unbelievable that Canterbury and these places are voting for Corbyn. That is, but of course it is incredibly polarised at the moment. And right, so it is, and I must sort of say this, James. Your programme, the way you deal with them people, and there was one, and I have been mentioning him in your act. My partner and I'd watched it, and we cried and cried. It was the bloke who went, well, now, thing is, now we're going to run, we can go and trade with all these other people, innit? And you said, well, what other people? And he went, well, all them places we used to run. And you said, what place? And he said, well, let's face it, we used to run 3/3 of the world.
Yeah, that was quite a moment.
We used to run 3/3 of the world. And then, this is genius. He actually managed to follow that. Because my memory of this, and I'm pretty sure it's true, as you said, well, then you don't care if the European, you put much more articulate this, but, you don't care that then the EU countries then will impose all sorts of sanctions on us. Yeah, what do you mean? Well, then we'll tell them they can't, if, say the French come here, we'll keep them waiting all day at customs or whatever it was he was saying. They won't like that, will they? And then you said to him, yeah, but then they'll do the same to you when you want to go to France. And his answer was, yeah, but I don't want to go to France.
It's lovely to see someone like you finding that so funny. Because when you're in a radio studio, sometimes you find yourself thinking, is this as good as I think it is? This poor fella, but they've got, he's got his vote's worth the same as yours, isn't it? I liked him. I liked him as well, because he meant it was, no, you're right, he was. I don't want to go to France.
I don't want to go to France.
That was his logical response.
Why don't they have that? Say that in Brussels. When Barnier and Tusk and that go, then we will quite simply, just put up tariffs in such a way that it will not be possible for you to even go to France. Yeah. I don't want to go to France.
And what else you got, Barnier? I don't want to go to France. Oh, that's lovely for me to know that kind of reaction from somebody like you. We're almost done, but we jumped early because we started with the adoption and the something else we had in common. You tracked your biological mother down.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Yes.
But it's not got a kind of.
Well, it's got a sort of happy ending.
Yeah.
Because I tracked her down. One half of this story is not a happy ending.
Right.
She had no interest.
How did that feel, mate?
Well, I was a bit cross.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sort of deeply upset and hurt and so on. I've been rejected because I didn't know her.
Sure.
And it was just, blimey, I was cross because I thought I've bloody...
You're always warned, aren't you, that this could happen?
Yeah. I'd gone to a lot of trouble to find her. And I thought, you could at least have bloody given me the time of day or sent me a... I think I was saying in the show, if someone come round my house for any reason and said, oh, Mr. Steele, I've been 6 months trying to find you. I'm compiling a list of everybody in the area in alphabetical order. Don't know why.
Have a cup of tea.
Anyway, I'd say, I don't know why you done that, mate, but I thought I'd start with the S's. Don't know why I did that. I was like, come in, mate. I'll put the kettle on. I think you're around the twist, but there you are. But
manners.
Manners, exactly. Rude. But this is a strange thing. There was a very lovely woman who did the sort of chasing up on my behalf. This is the way it's done. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But she was very, very good at tracing her to Rimini in Italy. And this were very efficient. Right, so what are we going to do, Mark? I'm going to contact her tomorrow. And then, so she had because we sent a letter and nothing came back. So, well, I've got a phone number in a little flat there, a little apartment in Rimini, Italy. I'm going to get in touch with her and contact. And I'm going to give her a little bit of a whatnot and say, come on, you really ought to sort of come and respond in some sort of way. We've given you courtesy here, understand all the problems that maybe may occur. And I'll give you a call back tomorrow, Mark, okay? So she did that, and then she rang me back, and she said she doesn't want to know, but she said it was the most extraordinary conversation. She said because Francis, she said I'd do all I could to keep her on the phone. And then Francis all of a sudden said, I want to ask 3 questions, like some sort of Indiana Jones type sort of scenario. And the first question, what does he do for a living? I said, well, he's a comedian. Second question, does he have any children of his own? I said, he does. He has a son, he has a daughter. She said, then Mark, asked a third question. She asked a third question, and in all the many years I've been performing this role, I have not once ever heard anybody suggest such a conundrum as the one that she then posed. She said, what are his politics? Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah.
And I don't know what on earth that must have been about, and she said, and then, while I was digesting this, she said, before I put the phone down, let me tell you who the father is. And I said in the show, I just thought he was just some random French bloke in the night, what is your name? Francis, my favourite of the names. Maybe you'd like to accompany me to the bus shelter. Francis. But I said, okay, what name? And she said this name, and this bloke was the 1976 World Backgammon champion, who then invested his money into Wall Street and become a multi-millionaire. He owns property all over the world, but even that isn't the start of it, because he was at the heart of a particular section of society in the 70s called the Claremont Club.
Right.
Because the Claremont Club was the backgammon club where this character made made lots of money. And he was part of this group. Now, I don't know what his own personal opinions were, but he was part of this group that revolved around James Goldsmith, Jim Slater, Tiny Rowlands, John Aspinall, who ran the Claremont Club, and then later Kerry Packer, all of which were the very characters in the 1970s whose completely rampant greed,
disaster capitalism,
always involved in various sort of stuff that went on that was in the news, and Slater Walker controversies,
asset stripping,
all of that. The very people that in the 1970s I used to watch on the news that made me be sort of an angry socialist.
Your biological
in the
father
first
was
place.
their mate.
He was their mate. He was more than their mate. He worked alongside them, set up all sorts of financial, I don't want to say institutions, but with Kerry Packer, he worked with him immensely closely. He was his right-hand man around the world in all sorts of ways. And one way or another, I managed to contact him, and we met up. And the really odd thing is we really got on. I thought I really like him. He's funny. He was very Jewish.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't know, there's something very, very funny about him. We only met him once. I would like to meet him again. He was living in half in Los Angeles and half in Switzerland, which I guess was for tax reasons. I don't know. Immensely, ridiculously wealthy, been mate of the George Bush's family and also, I think probably a Democrat, I guess, as a sort of millionaire Jewish character in those worlds. But there you go. What do you do with that? What do you do with that information? And of course, one character who I haven't mentioned, who he was very, very close to.
I know where we're going.
Lord Lucan.
Of course.
And I
think he knows.
Yeah. And I
seriously?
Yeah, it must do. And I said to I had a mate who the next day I was telling this to. I told him all of this. Guess what I've just found out? And this is why this bloke who I said this to will always be such a good mate for this reason. He said to me exactly the right thing a mate should say in them circumstances. He went, well, it'll be easy to find your dad now. All you've got to do is find Lord Lucan and you've got him.
What stillness. Perfect, thank you. That was bang on. Hello, I'm James O'Brien. Thank you for watching this episode of Unfiltered. Not only is there plenty more where that came from, but there's plenty more to come as well. So make sure you subscribe to Unfiltered and put yourself at the front of the queue for all forthcoming interviews.